Cenk Uygur, the founder of the Young Turks, along with his nephew, left-wing streamer Hassan Piker, have been banned from the UK, claiming their visit was not conducive to the public good. Both commentators have strongly condemned Israel's genocide. I caught up with Cenk to discuss their ban. So, news of you and your nephew Hassan Piker being banned from the UK really has sent shockwaves. Can you talk me through what happened?
Yeah, I went to the airport and I didn't think that there would be any issue at all. It didn't even occur to me because I was in the UK just a year ago. I already have an ETA. And the lady at the United counter said, "I'm sorry, this is really weird, but you've been rejected by the British government. You're not allowed to enter the country, so we can't let you board the flight." And I thought, I was just flummoxed. I was like, what? I thought it was a bureaucratic mistake. But it turns out, no, it was for a political reason. And once I realized that, I knew it was Israel. And then 15 minutes later, an article came out in the Times saying, yeah, it was because I was criticizing Israel. Now, the British government's trying to backpedal out of that and go, well, we was going to disturb the public order. Okay, how come I didn't disturb the public order last time I was there? How come mayhem and riots didn't break out? And why won't you clarify why would be a threat to the public order? Oh, right, you already told the Times. It was because I was criticizing Israel.
Yeah, and it just shows, I mean, you would think they would just admit their reason, but I suppose because of the level of public pressure we have tried to put on the government, and majority of people are opposing what Israel's doing, I can imagine they didn't want to admit it, but that's what's happened. But, you know, in this country, you cannot say the phrase, I support Palestine action, because they're a prescribed group. Yet we have elderly people peacefully holding up signs and being arrested. So from your point of view, in the US, do you think that Keir Starmer and his government is uniquely authoritarian?
So it's hard for me to tell in the British context because, I've lived under Israeli authoritarian rule my whole life here in America. So if you ever criticize Israel, you would get banned from all media. In fact, I'm banned from CNN, MS Now, Fox News. I'm banned from all the cable news networks. Now I'm banned from Britain. I mean, I'm a person who believes that everyone should be treated equally. I'm 100% against bigotry of any sort, against Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, doesn't matter. Racial background. I'm on the left. All this is absurd. Of course, you shouldn't discriminate based on race, religion, or any other, features of your identity that you were born into. So why am I such a big danger? And the reality is the people in power are, especially here in America, are literally all financed by the Israeli lobby. And so if you're financed by any lobby, you work for that lobby. And I'll give you many other examples. Big Pharma is usually the top donor to Congress. In this particular case, in the last cycle, it was the Israeli lobby. But Big Pharma is so powerful that they have killed capitalism in America. And our media in America is funny because they never tell you anything that's really true. They just cover it in a whole bunch of pyrotechnics and distractions. We call it like a bag of squirrels on the Young Turks. Anytime the powerful are in trouble, they throw squirrels. They go, squirrel, squirrel, right? So, does anybody know that we legalize bribery in America? That you can give unlimited money to our politicians in the form of campaign contributions and independent expenditures? That one family alone, for example, the Adelson family, an Israeli family, has given Donald Trump over $300 million. And we're pretending that these aren't bribes? And why did I say the drug companies killed capitalism in America? We're not allowed to negotiate drug prices. That is the exact opposite of the free market. That is actually corporatism. So corporations have taken over. Why did they take over? Because we legalized bribery. Foreign governments like Israel, through their lobbies, have taken over. Why? Because we legalized bribery. So our 94% of our Congress has gotten donations from the Israeli lobby. The number one lifetime donor to Joe Biden and Donald Trump and every congressional leader we have is the Israeli lobby. And then the American media comes out and says, if you notice facts that are true, you're an anti-Semite. Oh, okay. So now you're also obviously working for the Israelis. Now, why does the American media basically work for the Israeli lobby? That's a much more complicated and interesting question. It's partly because there's a network of thugs that support Israel in all of our countries. and they try to get anyone who criticizes Israel fired. And until 3 years ago, their success rate was 100%. If you criticize Israel, you were definitely going to get fired if you worked in traditional media in America. And so that's a fact, and people can look that up and see, oh, did anyone criticize Israel and get away with it? No, right? So now things have broken down because of online media, and the walls are breached. And since they can't persuade anyone anymore, and of course, all the Israeli talking points are hilarious. They're like, we're a special ally. Okay, Britain's a special ally. Do we owe them $300 billion? Because we've given Israel over $320 billion. That's a robbery. So when we give the oil companies $35 billion a year, that's a robbery. They're literally robbing us because they bribe the politicians. But what a lot of people don't know is their getaway driver is American media, because they tell you, oh, no, there's no problem with the oil subsidies. Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with not negotiating drug prices. Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with Israel's genocide. There's only something wrong if you criticize Israel's genocide. So this is how both Israel and in America, almost all the lobbies have taken over our government and our media.
I appreciate you saying that, maybe it's hard to understand in the British context whether, Keir Starmer is really authoritarian. So what I suppose I could ask you is, are you surprised to see this level of draconian governance, maybe not just from the Labour Party, but from the UK? Because, of course, you're absolutely right. What we're witnessing over in the UK about America, you've got AIPAC, which is a really powerful machine, which just disposed of Thomas Massey, a Republican candidate, not a Democrat. So I think a lot of us understand that in America, your politicians are explicitly bought. There is money in UK politics, but not as big of a deal it is in America. You have Citizens United, for example. So, from your understanding and the fact that you live in a what you call it is a quartocracy or whatever, are you surprised that you've seen this level of draconianism from the UK? Because to be honest, I'm quite surprised. I predicted Keir Starmer was going to be authoritarian, but I'm very surprised that you and Pike have been banned.
Yeah, look, they've taken it too far, and that's why there's been this, big pushback and reaction and shock. But no, I'm not overly surprised. So first of all, the Labor Party did it. The Democrats in America finance the death, destruction, and slaughter that Israel brings the Middle East. Joe Biden gave them $21 billion to kill more Palestinians. It was in the middle of the genocide, and almost like as a thank you gift. Hey, way to kill Palestinian. Here's more. And our media has been telling us that Joe Biden is such a sweet, lovable old grandpa our whole lives. When you take the mask off, it turns out, no, he loves to finance a genocide. He's an egomaniac who wouldn't step aside. So just because they call themselves Democrats or Labor doesn't really mean anything, right? And in terms of Starmer and British politics overall, yeah, of course, without the thermonuclear corruption that America has, the British government is better off, and you guys have a little bit more freedom, and you get to do some things and say some things that we don't get to say. Although your government is definitely more censorious. Our media is more censorious. Your government is more censorious. But overall, look, here's what a lot of people don't understand. And honestly, until about, I don't know, a year ago, so not when the genocide started, but pretty recently, I didn't realize the level of power that extreme Israel supporters had over our governments. And do they have a lot of power and money? Of course they do. And guys, it never applies to all Jewish people. I have friends that I grew up with that I've known for 40, 50 years. Mossad never calls them. The IDF never calls them and asks for permission. They got nothing to do with it. In fact, 63% of Jewish Americans are against this current Israeli government. But are there some supporters of Israel that are extremists with also an extreme amount of money and power? And do they influence politicians from, low-level officials all the way up to the prime minister and the president? Absolutely. And the proof's in the pudding, because I'm not in the studio with you. I'm in Los Angeles because they had enough power to ban me.
Now, I'm really, really interested in getting your perspective on the UK media. Now, this seems to be sort of a propensity that we have that we think of the US is, everything is more right wing. You're policing, maybe Christian fundamentalism in politics. You don't have guaranteed healthcare. So maybe your media is just more right wing than ours. But I've seen your appearances on LBC with Sheila Fogarty. You're on GB News, which is the British Fox News. What's your assessment of our media, especially in this context, compared to yours?
It's actually very similar, because if you go on a normal left-wing or right-wing show that's online or a podcast or not one of the big establishment media companies, then the reception is wonderful. And that's also true in America. So uh, as big as we are on the left, I've gotten a great reception from Tucker Carlson, Sean Ryan, Megyn Kelly, and the list goes on, because we're all outsiders and we disagree significantly on other issues. But in America, we believe in American sovereignty, and the right and the left agree on that. We're anti-war, and the right and the left online agree with that. So, but when you get to establishment media, both in America and in Britain, they immediately turn into rabid extreme Zionists. There's a group in America that's targeted our families. So they try to get Anna's husband fired. He's a teacher and a coach in high school. So a high school teacher that, by the way, is not at all political. And they're like, no, we want him fired. He has to denounce his wife publicly. Otherwise, the school should fire him so that it hurts Anna's family. And they say things like this out in the open. Laura Loomer said, she doxed my wife, who's a therapist, and said no one should go to her, and we're going to try to contact all of her clients to destroy her business. And the reason is we want to destroy Cenk's family. So these thugs exist, and our media helps them. So Jay Tapper on CNN retweets that group all the time, and including about me. It's like, yeah, anti-Semite, right? That's not remotely true. And in fact, what am I best known for outside of this in America? For being the biggest supporter of Bernie Sanders in American media. So, and Jay Tapper knows that, and all the cable news hosts know that. In fact, they attacked me for that earlier. But now they're like, you see how that anti-Semite was trying to make a Jewish man the most powerful person on earth? What? So they say these outrageous lies with no conscience at all. So then, to your point, I go on British media, and the bigger they are, the more absurd they are. This morning I was on Sky News, and there was a good conversation, nothing wrong with it, except every time I said genocide, they're like, we have to clarify that it's not necessarily a genocide. We've been told by the Israeli lobby that we can't call it a genocide. I'm like, why are you apologizing to the Israelis on your air, on British air? It's Kafkaesque. It's absurd, right? It's over the top. And in terms of like the more right-wing outlets, etc. But again, it's not about right-wing. It's really more establishment. So they think that they're doing gotchas. I found those, the GB one and the LBC one, to be comical. I say Israel, they say Jews. I say Israel, they say Jews. And then finally I said, I think you might be the anti-Semite.
Well, that's a great point, and that's what you said with Sheila Fogarty, which was wild to me, because you were saying, look, the problem is Israel with their influence. And it's not just Israel. It's oil companies, pharmaceutical companies. Israel just found the right way to do it, which is just put loads of money in people's pockets. And her response was, well, don't you mean Jews? And I find that so telling, because the establishment media, corporate media, who are so wax lyrical about anti-Semitism, I think do a lot of anti-Semitism by conflating Jewish people with Israel.
At this point, that's indisputable. So it's driven by, again, the extremists and not the majority of Jewish citizens in America or Britain. But the extremist demand of the media that you conflate Israel with all Jewish people. And one of the charges they have against me is that I said they're hiding behind, they're basically using Jewish citizens as human shields. And that's exactly what they're doing. Because look, if the Turkish government does something wrong, ethnically Turkish, if I called you a racist against Turks when you said that, well, not only would I be obviously hiding behind offending Turkish civilians to protect the actions of the Turkish government. I mean, it's absurd to say that you'd be criticizing the Turkish government because you're racist against Turks. It's equally absurd when you say it about Israel, but they say, no, that one's not absurd. That one's not absurd. But there's a second bigger problem, and that's the one you're pointing out here and asking about. if you say that, then every time the Turkish government does something terrible, people are going to think all Turks did it. And then you will drive racism towards Turks. But we didn't agree to that. It's the government. The governments do terrible things all the time. The Saudis say that they're a Muslim state. If every time the Saudis did something terrible, like chop up a reporter, everyone in media came out and said, no, you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to criticize the Saudis because that means you're racist against Muslims or bigoted against Muslims. Again, A, it would be absurd, and B, it would then lead people to thinking, wait, do all Muslims chop up reporters? No, of course, governments do terrible things. And when you say that a government that is committing a genocide and attacking all of its neighbors and has killed, at a bare minimum, 76,000 people, but according to the Lancet Journal, 186,000 Gazans, directly and indirectly, let alone the Lebanese, let alone the Iranians, if you say all of that death and mayhem and slaughter represents all Jews, you're being deeply anti-Semitic. So I'm trying to combat the ironic anti-Semitism of mainstream media, both in the US and the UK.
Yeah, so the weaponization of anti-Semitism, they did it to Jeremy Corbyn. They're doing it to Zach Palansky's Green Party, despite him being Jewish. And of course, any criticism you label of the Israeli government, they basically say you hate Jews. I want to ask you, of course, that's very clear. Me and you understand that. But you've had a far longer career in the media than I have. You've also worked in the mainstream media. How prevalent and how long has that conflation been around? Now, in our context, it's been around for a long time, but it really came to the forefront when Jeremy Corbyn became leader, and now he stepped down. That discourse hasn't left. In the US, from your point of view, how long has that been in the political discourse? Has it been right from the beginning, from your experience?
Yes, my whole life. For about 50 straight years, if you said anything against Israel, you were a goner. You were definitely going to get fired. And still, it's true in mainstream media. Anna was a regular contributor on CNN. They found out that she was critical of Israel. Boom, gone. No, it's in America. It's deeply oppressive, and extreme Zionists have been in control for a long time. They're in control because some of the owners of the media outlets are extreme Zionists, and so they say you're not allowed to say that. So am I not allowed to report facts? Larry Ellison's obviously an extreme Zionist. He's the biggest donor to the Israeli Defense Forces. He's given them $16 million at a minimum in one time. And so, and Larry Ellison just bought CBS, CNN, and TikTok. And Netanyahu and others bragged that the Ellisons bought it on behalf of Israel. So you have that, but that's not the only phenomenon. And by the way, don't get me wrong. Not all of the media is owned by Zionists. No, but some of the media clearly is. That's just factual. But I think the bigger factor is the thugs. So those extreme Zionists, they call not only the person saying something critical of Israel an anti-Semite, but if you don't fire them, since it's a witch hunt, they go, well, if you don't fire them, then you're an anti-Semite, and we're going to destroy your career and your family. And through that intimidation, they've really shut down any criticism of Israel my whole life. Now, again, because of online media, we breached the walls over the last 3 years. So now over 60% of Americans are opposed to Israel. The majority of British citizens are opposed to Israel. And now they've just gone to direct oppression. They've lost the debate. They've lost the argument. So they're saying the majority of Americans and British people are anti-Semites. And so, but what are they going to do? Fire all of us? So, no, and I'm sick of this oppression. And they almost demand that you lie about it. They say, no, you must say that. And literally, this is what the British government said in banning me. They said, you say that the Israeli lobby is given more to Congress than any other lobby. So we're banning you. So do you need me to lie about it? Because in this last election cycle, the Israeli lobby did give more than any other lobby. So the British government is demanding that I lie to you in order to gain entry into your country, but not lie to you about the British government, but lie to you about the Israeli government to protect them. That is super weird. And in American media, if you say Larry Ellison has bought these things and he's obviously an extreme Zionist, they say you're not allowed to say that. Okay, I mean, what is this absurdity? And you know the old line from Voltaire: "Find out who you can't
Mm.
criticize, and you'll know who rules you."
I mean, you can say whatever you want about Keir Starmer to a point, but you can say whatever you want and you'd be fine. But criticizing a foreign government, and I think the response from the media is to say, well, if you say that Zionist or Israel controls an aspect of politics, what you're really doing is doing that, Jewish conspiracy theory. But as you've pointed out, as we pointed out, look, there's a separation here. But it's really, really odd that sometimes it feels like our own governments care more about a foreign government. I mean, you've got politicians that go to Israel and say, I pled fealty to Israel. It's really crazy. Something that's happened in our media, and I'm interested to get your take on this, which is the media as a whole is still very pro-Israel. I'll use Piers Morgan as an example. At the beginning of 2023, the end of 2023, the entire media was basically, do you condemn Hamas? And you can't even say anything about Israel. Piers Morgan, we could say he's gone on a bit of a journey. He's definitely far more nuanced. I still don't think he's good enough, but he's probably better than a lot of other people. There are some people in the mainstream media that have slightly been tactile and are willing to concede ground on some things, but still are spinning things in a pro-Israel way. But they're not quite as overtly pro-Israel maybe a year ago because they probably can't, get away with it. In America, though, have you seen any kind of tactile change from media pundits to try and look like they're in touch? Or have they just been as brazenly pro-Israel as they were from, let's say, the first onslaught after October 7th?
So there is an enormous divide. And so depending on which side of the divide you're talking about, the answer is completely divergent, 100% opposed to one another. So when you go to online media, oh my God, we've won the debate. It's over. Before Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, when they were on Fox News, were generally supportive of Israel. Now they're dead set against the war crimes against Israel, They're for American sovereignty, and they realize all the things that have been going on, and they're speaking out against it, and they're speaking out against the war. And that also includes many other huge right wingers, Sean Ryan, Candace Owens, and many, many others. Almost, you've still got the sellout crowd, but they're even barely hanging in there. I mean, even the guys who are diehard Trump supporters, like Benny Johnson, are like, this looks really bad, right? Like, I love Trump, I love Israel, but it looks really bad, right? And to the point where Charlie Kirk, who had gotten $540 million, a lot of it from pro-Israel forces, at the end was turning against Israel. So in online media, things have changed completely. And I actually think that Piers Morgan is a good avatar of that. He started out with kind of a mainstream media mindset, but you have to give him credit. He was open to debate and dialogue, and even though the field was set against us, so as to your point, every conversation starts with, "Aren't you supporting terrorists?" In essence, right? But now it's swung all the way to our side, and he aggressively challenges the Israeli supporters. He still challenges us, but obviously we've won the day. And how did we win the day? We won it through debate and logic. So, okay, you say Hamas is terrorist, fine, of course. 67% civilian kill ratio indicates intent. Well, we've now found out that the IDF has an 83% civilian kill ratio. So obviously, by the same standards, they intend to kill civilians. And they've done a spectacular job at it. Gave the numbers earlier, but they've killed potentially hundreds of thousands of civilians, and 70 to 100 times the number of civilians that Hamas has killed. So by any standard, by any definition, the IDF are terrorists. The Israeli government is one of the largest terrorist organizations in the world. So if you're arguing based on facts and you're having an open conversation, the Israeli supporters cannot win that debate. They're wrong on every single fact. And all they have is silly propaganda like, oh, you're an anti-Semite, we're a special ally. These are meaningless mumbo jumbo. What does special ally mean? Okay, then we're a special ally of Israel. Why don't they give us $320 billion back? They say, oh, taking the $300 billion off of you helped you. Okay, great, then we'll help you. Give us the $300 billion back. And they're like, because in mainstream media, they've never been challenged on that. So as Bane said to Batman, victory has defeated you. Their propaganda is really weak and super easy to beat. Now, we go over to mainstream media. Not one thing has changed. In fact, it's more oppressive than ever. It's more Kafkaesque and absurd than ever. So a perfect example is happening right now. Graham Plattner is a populist Democrat. My PAC, Rebellion PAC, has endorsed him. He's running for Senate in Maine. The Democrats have had a hell of a time defeating Susan Collins. So I've been covering politics for 25, 30 years now. We're the oldest show in online history. We're the first YouTube partner channel. So I've seen it all. And I've seen them try to defeat Susan Collins with corporate robots now so many times. And every time they pour a ton of money into a really weak pro-establishment candidate, and Susan Collins wins. Good news, Graham Plattner is not like that at all, and he is now taking the lead. And he's got a 9-point lead on Susan Collins. We're finally going to do it. And what happens? Since he doesn't support the Israeli lobby and he doesn't take any money from the Israeli lobby, all of a sudden, not only do you have the Israeli lobby spending millions of dollars against him, not only do you have right-wing media attacking him, well, that makes sense. They're going to attack any opponent of Susan Collins, right? Fox News, etc. But CNN is attacking him literally every single day. MS Now is supposed to be the left-wing channel on cable news, which is hilarious. They're attacking him every single day. Not only are Republican politicians attacking him, Democratic politicians are going on CNN and MS Now and attacking him. So the entire infrastructure of the establishment, the media, and the government have united against Graham Plattner. Why are Democrats who said vote blue no matter who said you have to have unity, you don't support Bernie Sanders, you have to unify around Hillary Clinton. Oh, great, we're finally going to beat Susan Collins, unify around Graham Plattner. They're like, how dare you? He's opposed to the Israeli lobby. We have to destroy him. Oh, so you're not a Democrat. You just work for Israel. So you're not a reporter. You just work for Israel. And so they're proving it every single day. Those mainstream media outlets in America haven't moved an inch. If you criticize Israel, they despise you and try to ruin your life. There is no open and free conversations. It's all choreographed. It's all scripted. In fact, on the Young Turks, we literally tell you what's going to happen before it happens, because it's not that hard. All you have to do is follow the very simple journalistic principle of follow the money. And once you follow the money, you know exactly what's going to happen in American government and in American media.
That parallel is so strong in the UK because Keir Starmer wasn't really scrutinized before the election. But Jeremy Corbyn, he was in the same political party, was monstered because the establishment isn't a liberal conservative bias or a Democrat Republican bias. It is a top-down corporate Zionist bias, which is why they can give Keir Starmer an easy time, because he was affable to the political establishment, whereas Jeremy Corbyn wasn't. Final question then. Do you think that as Israel's crimes are getting worse, it's not just Palestine, they're going into Lebanon, into Syria, they're going to heights, murdering innocent people, is Israel pressuring Western states harder out of desperation because me and you and most people can see their war crimes?
Yeah, definitely. So, and that's a really good question. So I'm going to connect to both those topics. So right now, the big scandal about Graham Plattner is that he texted other women. Okay. Now, it turns out an independent media outlet reported that Susan Collins has been having an affair for years and years and years, and that the New York Times and Washington Post and other outlets have known about it, but they refuse to cover it. So one guy texts women, and it's a giant scandal, and all of media covers it, right? The other person in the race is actually having an affair, not text. And I don't know, but I'm just saying that an independent media outlet is reporting it. And apparently, according to them, the rest of the media goes, oh, no, we know what she's doing is way, 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 way worse, but we refuse to cover it. I mean, the idea that they're objective is a hilarious joke. No, it's all super clear. If you support the establishment, you'll get a free ride. If you're against the establishment, our objective media will do a seek and destroy mission on you. So now that connects to your question, because no matter how much oppression they do, and no matter how much Israeli propaganda they do in American media, they've still lost. We've got over 60% of Americans on our side. And now for Americans under the age of 50, the view of Israel is at a negative 45. It's over. So among Jewish Americans, 63% are opposed to the current Israeli government. But 67% of older Jews in America are deeply, support Israel. But when you get to 18 to 34-year-old Jewish Americans, only 36% of them support Israel at all. That's an amazing fact. Why? Because they're good people. They're not biased. They're not extremists. They look at it and they go, why would I support a government that's doing a genocide? I don't care if they call themselves a Jewish state, just like I don't care if Saudi Arabia calls themselves a Muslim state. Who cares? No, those younger Jews are Americans. I'm an American. It doesn't matter what our religion or race is. And so now that we're allowed to see the truth in online media, it's become obvious and clear. So since propaganda isn't working like it used to, and before it worked beautifully for 50 long years, it worked nearly perfectly in America. But now that that is gone, they're going to direct oppression. Okay? No, if you criticize a genocide, you're an immoral bigot, and we'll ban you from a country, we'll ban you from media, we'll try to ban you everywhere. In America, they have these laws in over 30 states against the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement. So if you say we should boycott Israel, which any decent human being should do and be in favor of, they say we're going to cancel your government contract. And in that way, we're going to take away your livelihood and some portion of your freedom. They've taken my freedom of movement away from me. So, and by the way, to your earlier point, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, went to Israel to sign one of the bills that says that his own citizens in Florida cannot criticize Israel. What level of absurdity have we reached? This is totally insane. They're basically now rubbing it in our face. In fact, here, I'll give you at least one more example. So Jonathan Pollard is one of the biggest traitors in American history. He stole our top secrets and, of course, gave them to Israel. Then the Israeli lobby set in to release him from prison because they're like, what's the big deal? We rob you all the time. We robbed you of your nuclear secrets, and you never even bothered to arrest Robert Maxwell, who, by the way, is the father of Ghislaine Maxwell. Israel stole our nuclear triggers. Israel stole our uranium. And they're like, no, we get to steal all that from you. We get to take $320 billion off of you. We get to make you fight all of our neighbors and cost you $8 trillion. And we get to steal all of your top secrets through Jonathan Pollard, and we demanded he be released. First, they tried it with Bill Clinton, and Netanyahu said, and this is reported, we have the Lewinsky tapes before they were public. And then our media says, how dare you say that Israel might blackmail American politicians? They already did it. It's already on the record. So Bill Clinton didn't give in to that blackmail at first. And guess what happened? The Monica Lewinsky tapes were released. Oh, so you see how that's how blackmail works. So then Obama said, oh, okay, I'll let him out of prison. Now, Obama's supposed to be on the left. I mean, a champion of change and hope, right? Nope. Did what the Israeli lobby wants. And then Trump said, yeah, he can leave the country, which, again, another outrage. So now that gets to insult to injury. So once he could leave the country, somebody got him a private jet, flew him out in luxury back to Israel, and then they threw a party for him in Israel. The family that did that was the Adelson family, the same family that has given Donald Trump $317 million. By the way, the same family that also gave to the Clintons. Miriam Adelson is literally an Israeli citizen. She's also an American citizen, which, by the way, in America is not supposed to happen, but the Israelis can do anything they want. They can serve in a foreign military. They can bribe our politicians. So the reason I brought up that story, and one more part about it, Miriam Adelson, just I think about 2 months ago, did an event with Donald Trump, a public event, and she said, maybe I'll pay you another $250 million if you run for a third term. Now, you can't run for a third term in America. That's unconstitutional. But the Adelsons love to rub in the fact that you don't control your own country and your laws and your constitution doesn't matter. So they did that publicly to kind of humiliate Trump and America. And then it turns out it was the Adelsons who flew out Jonathan Pollard on their private jet back to Israel and threw him a party. That's them saying, of course we're not donating to your politicians and buying your media to help you. No, we're doing it to help Israel. And now we're going to rub it in your face. You don't control anything. We can literally get a traitor out of prison and throw a party for him, and there's nothing you could do as an American citizen. Last fact, in the last 3 years, the Israelis have, either Israeli settlers or the IDF have killed 10 Americans. Our government hasn't even asked the Israelis to arrest the murderers, and the Israelis have not arrested one of those murderers. They're all free to go. You can murder Americans, and our government won't even ask for any degree of justice. So we're now at the direct oppression stage, where they rub it in your face on purpose to try to dispirit you. What they're trying to say is there's no point in fighting back. We control your government and we control your media, so surrender to Israel. And what I would ask everyone in America, Britain, and all across the world is, do not surrender. Do not kneel to Israel. Fight back. Don't fight back in silly, ridiculous, or wrong ways. Never make it physical. Never make it violent. Never make it against Jewish people. Especially if you're on the left, we are for equality. We love our Jewish brothers and sisters. And a lot of them, in fact, the majority, are on our side against this current Netanyahu government. But should you fight back rhetorically and politically against Israel, I would argue that it's your duty to fight for that freedom and fight against this oppressive government that is oppressing us all and now bragging about it.
Fight back, we will. I think this ban is backfiring. You're on multiple UK platforms, not just left-wing platforms, but across the political spectrum. This won't bode well for our government. Cenk, thank you so much for coming on Turn Left.
I appreciate it, Curtis. Thank you for having me.